I have been building this list in my head for years. Not because these are sad stories, though some of them are. But because I kept finding the same mistake. 12 different legends, 12 different eras, 12 completely different circumstances.
I could be king.
And at the center of every single one, the exact same decision. The one thing they all did that changed everything. Let's go. Number 12, the Kinks.
I asked her name and in a dark brown voice she said Lola, L-O-L-A.
And I want to start here because when I first dug into this one, really dug in, I thought it was simple. The Kinks were brawlers. They blew up a US tour. They got banned. Rock and roll story. Done. It is not that simple. The year is 1965. The Kinks have just come off 3 consecutive top 10 US hits. You Really Got Me, All Day and All of the Night, Tired of Waiting for You, 3 in a row. They are one of the most commercially potent British invasion acts alive, and they arrive in America for their first proper concert tour, and it falls apart. In one summer, the band was already in pieces before the plane landed.
It is just like Jericho.
Earlier that year, an on-stage fight between Dave Davies and drummer Mick Avery had put Dave in the hospital and Mick in jail. They were barely speaking. Ray Davies was deeply uncomfortable in America from the start, skeptical of unions, cynical about authority, running on very little sleep and a lot of tension. The tour was plagued with poor ticket sales. The promoter could not pay them, they canceled shows, they cut sets short. And on July 2nd, backstage at a Dick Clark television taping in Los Angeles, a union official started making anti-British comments, calling them commie wimps, and Ray Davies punched him in the face. The American Federation of Musicians blacklisted them. 4 years, 1965 to 1969. Ray Davies said it himself. That ridiculous band took away the best years of the Kinks' career when the original band was performing at its peak. By the time we were allowed to return, the Woodstock generation had arrived and the Kinks were almost forgotten. "4 years, during which Woodstock happened, psychedelia exploded, rock became a cultural religion, and the Kinks, who were writing Waterloo Sunset and Sunny Afternoon during this period, had no way to put any of it in front of an American audience. The music survived, the momentum did not. I want you to hold that word, momentum, as we move through this list. Because momentum is the thing that keeps getting taken, sometimes slowly, sometimes in one night. Number 11, Heart. The first time I heard Barracuda, really heard it, not just had it on in the background, I knew it was aimed at someone specific. There is a target in it. You can feel the exact shape of the rage. And when I found the full story of where it came from, everything about that song changed for me. 1976. Anne and Nancy Wilson, Heart, put out Dreamboat Annie on a tiny Vancouver indie called Mushroom Records. It hits the top 10 in both the US and Canada, 2.5 million copies. For a debut, on a label most people had never heard of, that is extraordinary. And the money starts coming in, which is when Mushroom Records, instead of paying Heart their royalties, uses it to expand the label. Heart tries to renegotiate, brings in new management, nothing moves.
Ooh, Barracuda.
And then Mushroom's vice president took out a full-page ad in Rolling Stone, made to look like a tabloid cover. And underneath a bare-shouldered back-to-back photo of Anne and Nancy, the caption read, "Heart's Wilson sisters confess." It was only our first time. Anne Wilson's response, in her own memoir, "What steamed us the most was that our own record label had put out an ad that implied we were incestuous lesbian lovers." Their own label, about sisters, in Rolling Stone. Hart sued Mushroom for unpaid royalties and to get out of their contract. While the case was in court, Mushroom released an unfinished version of their second album, Magazine, without their consent, using rough vocals and studio outtakes they had not approved. A court ordered it pulled from shelves. When Hart finally went in to finish it properly, an armed security guard stood in the studio specifically to stop them from erasing the original recordings out of spite. The song Barracuda was written in a hotel room by Ann Wilson after a radio promoter, who had absorbed Mushroom's implication, said to her backstage, "How's your lover?" and gestured toward Nancy. She walked out and wrote one of the great rock songs of all time from the inside of pure righteous fury. Some mistakes generate their own correction. This one generated Barracuda, and I know that is almost too good a trade, except it never should have had to happen at all. Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story. Number 10, Fleetwood Mac. I need to tell you something that sounds like I made it up. I promise I did not make it up. In early 1974, a band called Fleetwood Mac went on a major US concert tour. The only problem, not one of those musicians was actually in Fleetwood Mac. By late 1973, the real band had essentially dissolved in the middle of a US tour. Guitarist Bob Weston had been fired for having an affair with Mick Fleetwood's wife. The remaining members, Christine and John McVie, Mick Fleetwood, Bob Welch, canceled the remaining dates and flew home. Their manager, Clifford Davis, had run the band's affairs since 1967. And when the cancellations came in, Davis did not cancel the outstanding bookings. He assembled a completely new group of musicians, different people, none of whom had ever been in Fleetwood Mac, and sent them out under the band's name. Davis told Rolling Stone, "This band is my band. This band has always been my band." The tour began on January 16, 1974 in Pittsburgh. And here is the part that still gets me. Some of the early shows went well. Audiences had no idea. The Pittsburgh promoter said the band was actually really good and the crowd had loved them. Then word got out. Promoters started canceling. Audiences started heckling. At a concert in Edmonton, bottles were thrown at the stage. The fake band dissolved. Mick Fleetwood's words when he found out, "It was the most preposterous thing we had ever heard, and the greatest betrayal from one of our own that we could have imagined." Christine McVie, "We couldn't work, not until we had proved he didn't own the name. That was the only time I really got panicky." The lawsuit settled eventually. Fleetwood Mac won their name back, and the chaos of the legal battle and the decision to move to California to fight it in US courts put them in the right room at the right time to meet Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. The greatest mistake of their early career led directly to the greatest commercial success of their entire run. Number 9, Neil Young. I need you to hear this one slowly, because the first time I heard it, I thought I was missing something, that surely this could not be what actually happened. It is exactly what happened. I crossed the ocean for a heart of gold. 1982. Neil Young has spent 14 years on Reprise Records, Harvest, after the gold rush. Rust never sleeps. He signs with Geffen Records looking for a new start. His first Geffen album is Trans, an electronic record built around synthesizers and vocoders. Made partly as a private way of communicating with his severely disabled son. who at the time had no way to make himself understood. Young said in a 1995 Mojo interview, "My son was trying to find a way to talk. That's what trans is all about. And that's why, on that record, you know I'm saying something, but you can't understand what it is. That's the exact same feeling I was getting from my son." Geffen Records heard a confused synth experiment. They told Young he needed to make a rock and roll record. Young thought about what that meant. He went back to the roots. He recorded a rockabilly album, 1950s Sun Records sounds 25 minutes long, and presented it to the label. His exact words, "This is a rock and roll album by Neil Young after someone tells him what to do." On December 1st, 1983, Geffen Records filed a $3.3 million lawsuit against Neil Young for making music that was, quote, musically uncharacteristic of his previous recordings. They sued him for not sounding like himself. Neil Young filed a $21 million countersuit citing his contract's guarantee of complete artistic freedom. Geffen eventually dropped the suit and personally apologized. And the thing I cannot stop thinking about, trans was made because Neil Young's son couldn't speak. He made it to feel something he had no other way to put into language. And the label's response was to go to court. Some records don't just sound good, they carry something private and irreplaceable. The industry has never quite known what to do with that. Number 8, The Rolling Stones. Some of you just sat up a little because you know where this is going. 1965. The Rolling Stones are riding 3 years of non-stop momentum. Satisfaction has just hit number 1. Their co-manager Andrew Luke Oldham, brilliant, barely 21, brings in a business advisor named Alan Clyde to renegotiate their Decca deal. Clyde walked into Decca's boardroom with the Stones behind him. He told them to wear sunglasses, say nothing, and stand at the back. Keith Richards described the Decca executives as literally drooling while Clyde went through his pitch. "We walked out with a deal bigger than the Beatles," Richards said. Then the Stones read the fine print. The $1.25 million advance had been deposited into a company Clyde controlled. The contract did not require him to release it for 20 years. And through a series of arrangements the band did not fully understand at signing, Clyde ended up owning the North American rights to every record the Stones made until their Decca contract expired in 1971. Not administered, owned. Clyde's company ABCO went on to make a fortune from Hot Rock's 1964-1971, the Stones' all-time best-selling compilation, while the band received very little of it. ABCO still controls that early catalog. In 1997, when The Verve sampled a Stones arrangement in Bittersweet Symphony, they lost the song rights entirely. That was not resolved until 2019. Mick Jagger eventually said, "He's just living off us and what we did 5-10 years ago. It's pretty pathetic." They were 22 years old, they were on the rocket, and they signed, because they wanted to make another record. Number 7. John Fogerty / CCR. John Fogerty wrote every song that made Creedence Clearwater Revival one of the greatest American rock bands of any era. Proud Mary, Bad Moon Rising, Fortunate Son, Run Through the Jungle, Born on the Bayou. 10 consecutive top 40 singles, 3 albums in the Billboard Top 10 in 1969 alone. And he signed all of it, the publishing, the rights, every word, to Fantasy Records owner Saul Zaentz. After CCR broke up in 1972, Fogerty fought for years to escape his Fantasy contract. He eventually got out, but at a cost. He had to surrender the rights to every song he had written under his Fantasy agreements. His own catalog, gone. For over a decade, He could not play Proud Mary live without knowing every dollar went to a man he despised. Then in 1985, after years of mostly silence, Fogerty released Centerfield. Buried in it was a song called Zans Can't Dance. The lyric, Zans can't dance but he'll steal your money. Watch out, boy, he'll rob you blind. Zaynts sued for defamation, $144 million, settled out of court. The song was renamed Vans Can't Dance. Zaynts was not finished. He looked at the opening track, The Old Man Down the Road, and said it sounded too similar to Run Through the Jungle, a CCR song, a song Fogerty had written 15 years earlier. Saul Zaynts sued John Fogerty for plagiarizing John Fogerty. The trial ran 2 weeks in 1988. Fogerty brought his guitar into the courtroom and played pieces of Proud Mary, Fortunate Son, and both songs in question, explaining to the judge and jury that this is simply what swamp rock sounds like. He won. And winning cost him over $1 million in legal fees. He wrote later, "It took me years to write anything near that territory again, because some part of me worried I was going to get sued." He did not return to swamp rock until 2007. When the person who wrote the song is afraid to sound like themselves, something has gone profoundly wrong. Number 6. Bruce Springsteen. 1972. Bruce Springsteen is 22 years old, playing bars in New Jersey. Having never made $5,000 in a single year, he meets a manager-producer named Mike Appel, who believes in him immediately. Bulldozes his way into an audition with the legendary Columbia Records talent scout John Hammond. Hammond signed Springsteen. That part is real. Appel did that. But the contract Springsteen signed, he described signing it in a New York City bar, on multiple shots of whiskey, with Appel's hand on his at one point as if to pause him. Springsteen signed anyway, because he didn't care about the money. He cared about making music. The deal gave Apple enormous control over Springsteen's publishing, recording, and management. Springsteen later said he was retaining less than a tenth of his own income. Then, Born to Run came out in 1975. Simultaneously on the covers of Time and Newsweek, Springsteen became the most hyped artist in rock and roll overnight, and he wanted to make the follow-up with co-producer Jon Landau. Appel said no. When Springsteen sued in July 1976, Appel obtained a court injunction preventing Springsteen from entering any recording studio with anyone other than Appel for nearly a year. At the exact peak of his commercial momentum, while the entire rock world was waiting for what came after Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen was legally barred from making music. He wrote over 80 songs during that year that he could not record. His own words in a court affidavit, "I have started countless numbers of songs which I have been unable to develop for lack of a proper recording opportunity. Many of these songs will never be finished." 80 songs, never finished, gone. The settlement came in May 1977. Springsteen walked into the studio the next day to begin Darkness on the Edge of Town. He described signing the original deal like this. "High on many shots of whiskey, I pressed pen to paper," end quote. And I know you know what that feeling is. Not the whiskey specifically, the thing underneath it, the belief that the work is the only thing that matters and someone else can handle the rest. That belief is the mistake. Every single time on this list. Number 5, David Bowie.
Could drive them away.
I need you to hold two things at the same time for this one. First, between 1972 and 1975, David Bowie made The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, Aladdin Sane, Pin-Ups, Diamond Dogs, and Young Americans. 5 albums. 5 of the most audacious, visionary, genre-obliterating records in rock history. Any era, any genre. Second, by the time Bowie and his manager parted ways in 1975, Bowie was essentially broke. The manager's name was Tony DeFries. His company was Main Man Management, which he ran like a motion picture studio, handling promotion, touring, image construction, everything.
Just for one day.
The deal gave DeFries 50% of Bowie's net royalties. 50. Main Man spent lavishly. That was part of the strategy. Surround Bowie with the trappings of superstardom before superstardom arrived, so the world would treat him accordingly. And it worked. Ziggy Stardust worked. The entire rocket worked.
Just for one day.
When the relationship finally unraveled in 1975, the settlement was this. DeFries gave up personal management, but he retained a 50% share of royalties from Bowie's first 5 RCA albums, Ziggy Stardust through Young Americans.
Could keep us together.
Until September 1982. 7 more years of income from 5 of the greatest albums in rock history. After the split, Bowie rebuilt himself. He managed his own career through the Berlin trilogy, Low, Heroes, Lodger. Some of the most influential music of the 20th century, made with very little money and enormous creative discipline. He was not just starting over artistically, he was starting over financially. It was not until 1997, 22 years after the split, that Bowie used proceeds from a $55 million bond deal to finally buy back DeFries' remaining stake in his own recordings.
The guns shot above our heads.
That is what the Ziggy Stardust era cost David Bowie, a $55 million buyback, decades later, to own the music he made in his 20s. The Berlin trilogy is widely considered his masterwork. I believe that too. And I also think about what it means that it was made by a man who had spent years being brilliant at someone else's financial benefit. That is what the mistake looked like from the inside of the greatest creative streak of David Bowie's life.
I could be king.
Number 4. Prince Rogers Nelson signed with Warner Brothers Records in 1977 at 18 years old. Over the next 15 years, he gave that label some of the most visionary music anyone had ever made. Purple Rain, Sign of the Times, Parade, Love Sexy, Graffiti Bridge, Diamonds and Pearls. A catalog worth, by any estimation, hundreds of millions of dollars. In 1992, Prince signed a new contract with Warner Brothers, reported as worth $100 million. That included one specific restriction. The label controlled the pace at which he could release music. Prince, who was recording constantly, who had a vault of completed albums, who wanted to release at the rate he created. This was suffocating. In 1993, Prince changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol. Not a word, not a letter, an image. Warner Brothers had to mail floppy disks containing a custom font to journalists just so they could write about him. He became known as the Artist, formerly known as Prince. He also began appearing in public with the word slave written in eyeliner on his cheek. His own statement, "Prince is the name that my mother gave me at birth." Warner Brothers took the name, trademarked it, and used it as the main marketing tool to promote all of the music that I wrote. The company owns the name Prince and all related music marketed under Prince. I became merely a pawn used to produce more money for Warner Bros. End quote. He spent the next 3 years flooding Warner with albums, releasing music as fast as his contract required just to get free. He named the record he released to celebrate his departure in 1996, Emancipation. He did not fully regain control of his masters until 2014, 2 years before he died. And I know what you are thinking right now. I thought the same thing. Number 3, The Beatles, 1963.
Play for you now a song called Please Please Me.
The Beatles' debut album, Please Please Me, has just been released. Their manager, Brian Epstein, connects them with a music publisher named Dick James. Together, they form Northern Songs, a company set up to publish the Lennon-McCartney catalog. Dick James holds the majority stake. John and Paul each hold around 15%. In 1965, Northern Songs goes public on the stock exchange, shares available to anyone. In 1969, after Epstein has died and the relationship with James has deteriorated, Lennon and McCartney go to renegotiate. And before any conversation can happen, Dick James sells his majority stake, without telling Lennon or McCartney, to a British television company called ATV, owned by Lou Grade. They found out through the press. Their counterbid for control failed. They eventually sold their own remaining shares. Over 250 songs, Yesterday, Hey Jude, Let It Be, Come Together, A Day in the Life, no longer belong to the people who wrote them. ATV held the catalog for over a decade. Then in 1984 it went up for sale. McCartney, who had told Michael Jackson about the value of music publishing during their early 1980s collaborations, was expected to bid. His representatives told ATV's team he thought the price was too high. Michael Jackson bought the catalog on August 10, 1985 for $47.5 million. McCartney's response: I think it's dodgy to do that, to be someone's friend, and then buy the rug they're standing on. Jackson and McCartney barely spoke again. And for the next 3 decades, until McCartney began legally reclaiming songs under U.S. copyright law in 2017, the music that 2 boys from Liverpool wrote in their 20s belonged to everyone except them. Some mistakes take 50 years to fully understand. This is one of them. Number 2, Tom Petty, 1976. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers released their debut album, American Girl, Breakdown, 2 of the most immediately perfect rock songs written in any era. The album goes gold. The follow-up, You're Gonna Get It, goes gold. Tom Petty, by any measure, is a working rock and roll success story. He has almost no money. He had signed away all of his songwriting and publishing rights for $10,000. $10,000. For every dollar his music generated, the label was keeping most of it. He later told Rolling Stone, "I had no idea I'd never make money if I did that." In 1979, his label Shelter Records was sold to MCA, one of the biggest companies in the music business. Petty's contract was transferred with the acquisition. He was being moved like a piece of equipment. His exact words, "I will not be bought and sold like a piece of meat." He refused to let MCA release his 3rd album. He personally financed the recording, ran himself $500,000 into debt, and then declared bankruptcy. Using the legal proceeding to force a court to void his contract as one signed under duress. $500,000 in personal debt, holding his own album hostage, at the peak of his commercial momentum. And if you have ever stood on a principle when it cost you something real, you know exactly what that position feels like from the inside. MCA blinked. They released him and immediately re-signed him with a $3 million guarantee on a brand new imprint called Backstreet Records. The album he had been holding, Damn the Torpedoes, came out and became the biggest record of his career. Triple platinum, Refugee, Don't Do Me Like That. Then in 1981, MCA tried to sell his next album, Hard Promises, for $9.98 instead of the industry standard $8.98. $1 more. Petty refused again. He said, "If we don't take a stand, one of these days records are going to be $20. MCA backed down. Again. Tom Petty won both fights. He is the only person on this entire list who came out the other side with more than he went in with. So why is he number 2? Because of what it cost to win. $500,000. A year of legal warfare. Having to bankrupt himself just to be treated fairly by people who already had his music. The founding mistake, $10,000 for everything he had ever written, meant that every victory he earned afterward was paid for out of his own pocket. He drew the line. He held it. I have enormous respect for that. I just wish he had never needed to draw it. Number 1. Elvis Presley. I want to start not with the mistake. I want to start with what Elvis Presley was before it fully arrived. He was 20 years old, from Tupelo, Mississippi, and something happened when he was in a room, on a stage, on a record, that had not existed in the world before. A voice. A physical presence. The specific combination of black music and white performance and raw, almost desperate vulnerability that no one had ever assembled in quite that way. Something that stopped people cold and could not be explained or manufactured or reproduced. He was the most naturally gifted performer to walk into a recording studio in the history of popular music. That is not nostalgia. That is the record. Then came a man born Andreas Cornelis van Kuijk in Breda, Netherlands. Who entered the United States illegally in 1929, changed his name to Thomas Andrew Parker, and worked his way through carnival circuits and country music promotion until he was standing in front of this 20-year-old kid from Mississippi with an offer. He called himself Colonel Tom Parker. The title was honorary, from a Louisiana governor. He was not a colonel. He was not a U.S. citizen. He was not even who he said he was. And Elvis, loyal, grateful, overwhelmed, and trusting, signed with Parker in 1956. Parker's commission started at 25%. Through a series of contractual expansions, it eventually reached 50% of everything Elvis earned. The industry standard was 10 to 15. In 1973, Parker arranged the sale of the rights to Elvis's entire back catalog to RCA in a buyout. Parker received $6.2 million. Elvis received $4.6 million. The man who made the music received less than his manager for selling the rights to it. Parker had also never registered 33 of Elvis's songs with BMI, the performing rights organization, meaning Elvis received 0 songwriting royalties on those recordings during his entire lifetime. And Elvis Presley never performed outside North America. Not once. Not Japan. Not England. Not Australia. Fans in every country on Earth waited their whole lives for an Elvis tour that never came. Because Colonel Tom Parker was an illegal immigrant who feared that if Elvis toured internationally, if the scrutiny of passport control and foreign governments fell on his background, he would be discovered and deported. And rather than tell Elvis the truth or step aside, Parker manufactured excuses. Security concerns, no stadiums big enough overseas, reasons that did not exist, invented to protect a secret he refused to share. Elvis pushed for international tours repeatedly. He was turned down every time. When Elvis died on August 16, 1977, he was close to broke, despite having sold somewhere between 600 million and 1 billion records in his lifetime. The estate's investigation found Parker had defrauded the Presley estate of between $7 and $8 million in just the 3 preceding years alone. By the time Elvis died, Parker reportedly owed $30 million in gambling debts to Las Vegas hotels. The most gifted performer in the history of popular music. Dead at 42. Never performed for the fans who loved him most in countries that had loved him without ever seeing him live. The mistake Elvis made, the one that sits at number 1, was not that he trusted Parker at 20 years old. That part is understandable. The mistake is that he never stopped. Even when the evidence was there. Even when the tours never came. Even when the money never added up. Because Parker was extraordinary at exactly one thing, making Elvis feel that everything was handled. That Parker was the reason any of it worked. That he needed the Colonel the way he needed air. That is the most human version of this mistake. Not greed, not stupidity. Loyalty. The willingness to keep trusting the person who believed in you first, long past the point where that trust made any sense. 12 legends, 12 times. The same decision at the center of every story. And the music, every single time, outlasted it.